Have you ever wondered why it seems like people around you just have a lot easier time with their finances or making money? You may know somebody personally that started a business and now that business is thriving, or you may see people on social media and people making money online or talking about how they're able to live financially free while meanwhile you're struggling, you're trying to figure it out. Or you might be starting a business, you may be operating a business for some time now and things just seem like they're stuck. Well, in this video, what I want to do for you is really give you a few myth busters when it comes to money, specifically when it comes to making money and your design for abundance, right? Because as God's people, as God's children, we're made for abundance, right? Abundance is our birthright. But if we don't understand certain principles and concepts and precepts that God literally has for us that are in the Bible, then we end up missing the boat sometimes. You know, God says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. And one of the things, especially when that's important in anybody's life, is finances. Now, is money everything? No, it's not. There are a bunch of other things that are important, but money is very important, right? I like what Jim Rohn says. You know, money isn't everything, but if you figure out the money problem early enough, then you can get to the rest of your problems in style. So how do you go about changing that, right? How do you go about really breaking the pattern and really tapping into the abundance that is meant for you? But what I want to do in this video is really just explain some common beliefs that a lot of people get trapped in and how you should really be thinking, especially when it comes to money, especially when it comes to your finances. Now, and I got my notes here too, so if you see me like looking back and forth, it's because this is really important and there are a lot of great points here that I don't want to miss. Here's the truth. The truth is, contrary to what a lot of people think, it's actually easier to make a lot of money faster than it is to make not a lot of money slower. Now, I understand that when you first think that, it doesn't really make sense, but it's actually true, right? Not only that, it's easier to build a bigger business faster than it is to build a small business, or it's easier to make great strides in really any area of your life than it is to make small incremental strides. And the reason for this is actually it's a biblical principle, right? God has set up his system in a way, I like to call them automations or principles, in a way that, when you follow these particular principles and you apply those principles to your life should not only be better over time, it actually increase exponentially over time, but a lot of people don't really experience that. A lot of people don't really get that experience in their life, and they think because they have had experience where making money, for example, is a hard thing, or it's taken a lot of time, it's taken a lot of effort, and they've seen maybe from other people, maybe from their parents or other generations, that they worked hard for 40, 50, 60 years for money just to get by, and because of that they have this concept that it really takes a lot of time to make a lot of money. Well, really that's not the case. It's just those people were living in certain principles and time of the era too as well, where that's just not necessarily true. And here's a concept to kind of prove that, or to really kind of just illustrate that for you a little bit better, right? So let's say me and you are gonna get in a race, and I have a messed up leg, maybe I got a limp or something, and the bet here is we're gonna see who's going to beat each other, right? But you run 1 mile and I run 2 miles. Now, mind you, I have the bummed up leg. Okay. Now, if we were putting $100 on this race, who do you think is going to win? I mean, it's pretty obvious that you, with the hopefully good leg running 1 mile, is probably going to beat me, which I have the bum leg running 2 miles, right? Unless I am using a bike in this race, right? Because in that case, now you may be running 1 mile, but I'm riding 2 miles on a bike, bum leg or not, most likely gonna beat you with that, Now, let's say you were riding a bike too as well. In that case, you would probably still win because, I mean, you might still win because you don't have the bum leg, but unless I get in a car, right? Because in that situation, you're in a bike and I'm in a car, and I'm gonna beat you going, let's say, 4 miles in a car than you would 2 miles in a bike. Or let's say you were in a car and you were gonna go 4 miles and I was gonna go 8 miles, fine. But I would probably beat you if I was in a plane going 8 miles versus you getting in a car and driving 4 miles in this race, right? I know this is kind of like an analogy, a little bit of a story, but the reason why I'm trying to illustrate this is because the truth of the matter is you can make up what you lack in ability, in talent, in skill with leverage. All right. And that's one of the biggest things. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that we miss, especially in the Black community, especially when it comes to making money and bettering ourselves financially, is we don't necessarily have to rely on our skill set or our ability, because you can make up what you lack in that department with leverage. All right. And I even have, I know I've even experienced this in my personal life. When I got started with digital marketing several years back, I tried a bunch of different methods of digital marketing, and one of the methods that I was using at the time to help generate additional income was doing some client work. And granted, I really enjoy client work. I still do client work to this day, but that was kind of like my main bread and butter. And I would work with people running their Facebook ads or helping them build their websites, et cetera, et cetera. But what I realized though was it was hard for me to eventually try and scale that up, because at that point I was doing all the work. And granted, I was doing all the work, I was making a decent amount of money, but it was a ceiling there because I was limited by my ability. I was limited by the time that I had. I was limited by my resources, and because of that, it felt almost kind of like I was on a treadmill running but not going anywhere, especially when it came to my finances. It wasn't until I started to diversify myself a little bit more and look at other means of creating financial income that were not attached to my time that I started to realize the power of this concept. Because what I started to do is I started to leverage other systems. I started to leverage other products for example, a business model that I got into was affiliate marketing. And the switch came so quickly because I saw very quickly the amount of money I was making with my clients, and then the amount of money I was able to make with affiliate marketing. And through affiliate marketing, I was able to actually start a business where, we made over $100,000 in about 6 months. And that was never something I even was remotely close to doing when I was working with clients, because once again, I was able to leverage systems, processes, products that weren't mine, and a business model that wasn't attached to my time to be able to do that. All that to say that really, when you come to figuring out, the goal here is to, if you're struggling, or even if you might not even necessarily be struggling, but let's say you're trying to increase your finances to X amount. Sometimes the answer isn't to do the same thing you've been doing, but harder, because that's where a lot of people struggle with. What you want to do is you want to look at opportunities and find leverage points that you can use to be able to get you to that next level. Because sometimes getting to the next level doesn't require you doing the same thing. Sometimes it requires you doing something different, but that has more leverage, so that you can actually build that momentum and see that exponential growth in your life, especially in your finances. Just like running harder isn't going to help me win my race if I'm running 2 miles and you're running 1, unless I pause long enough to find a bike or get in a car, which at that point I am being able to take advantage of leverage and go further and faster with less amount of energy, which is also a physics principle. So all of this stuff kind of ties into each other. So that's one lesson. Right, taking advantage of leverage in your situations, finding leverage in different opportunities to be able to help you break out of your financial situation, financial rut, or to get to the next level. The second concept is also trying to check how you think about money and what you actually say to yourself when it comes to money. And here's kind of a thought exercise to demonstrate this point. Go back to when you first had your first job. I started working when I was, I think, 15 or 16 when I got my first job. It was at a CVS in DC, and I was making like $9 an hour or something like that. My question for you though is, would you now, in this current state, of whatever age you're at watching this video, would you go back and make the same amount of money you were making when you first started working? My thought process, or my thought, if I were a betting man, would be no, you wouldn't. But why? Why wouldn't you? Why was it okay for you back then to make that amount of money, but now, years later, you wouldn't even consider that fact? Like that's so ludicrous to you. You're like, why would you do that? Well, not only because inflation is crazy and all that kind of stuff, or the minimum wage of the world has gone up, but really it's because you understand that you are worth more than that, right? Your mindset is different than you was back then, because back then, let's say you were making $5 an hour, $9 an hour, $12 an hour. You accepted that fact because that at that point was what you mentally agreed you were aligned with in terms of how much money you could make and how much you were worth making at that time. But as you got more experience, as you maybe went to school, or as you started your own business, or as you just climbed the ladder in whatever arena that you were doing, you were exposed more, and you started to personally believe and internalize the fact that you are worth more than the amount of money that you were making. And over time, you were either given a raise, or you would ask for a raise, or you would go out and seek other opportunities and jobs that had a higher pay. Because why? Because you felt worthy enough to be able to go get those jobs for whatever reason. It could be the time that you put in. It could be because you've put in, you've learned certain skill sets. It could just be because you just had a mental shift and you said, hey, this work isn't worth the $9 I'm working for, and I want to go make more money. But either way, that mindset shift helped you to be able to realize that the amount of money that you were making when you first started does not equate to the amount of money that you could make. So in your current situation, or in your current stage of life right now, how do you take this principle and apply this to your current life? Well, one thing I would challenge you to do is to think about the money that you want to make now, and you should increase that amount, right? And you should also change the way you are talking about that. Let's say you want to make $10,000 a month, because that is going to be enough money for you to be able to cover your bills and to be able to just live comfortably. Well, what I would suggest you do is take that amount, that $10,000, and up that by 25 or 50%. So let's say 15K. Now you might say, Gabe, I don't need 15K, right? 10K is comfortable for me. But here's why I want to challenge you here. Because when you do this, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be resetting your mindset. Seldom when you make the amount of money that you feel like you are not capable of making. I want to make, $10,000. You might think $10,000 is a lot for you right now. And if it is, then, seldom will you be able to even make that if you don't personally, internally believe that you can make that. Okay, subconsciously, you're going to stop yourself from doing that. But if you up that number up to 15K and add an only to it and say, I want to make only 15K a month, that switches the language. That also internalizes it within yourself to say 15K is the amount of money that I want to make. It basically lowers your starting point, and then now you're able to, when your mindset is thinking like that, you're able to actually go out there and achieve that amount that you're trying to make. You have a better chance of doing that versus kind of staying almost bare bones and limiting yourself to exactly what you feel like you would need. So challenging yourself to think bigger, okay? Think bigger. And even when you're thinking bigger, don't think in the sense of, well, I hope, or, it would be nice. Claim that, but not only just claim it, put that as your standard, right? So put your goal as your standard. Let's say you want to make 15K a month. Say, I only want to make 25K a month. Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, or it may sound like it doesn't really fit for you right now, but that's where the stretching happens. That's where the growth happens. And when you're able to do that and internalize that, you start to become the person that can achieve that. And that's what's going to help you get to that amount of financial, that financial amount that you are looking to achieve. So make up your mind, okay? Make up your mind this video that you're not going to spend your whole life running. And what I mean by that is you're not going to spend your whole life running, doing the same things as you did to get you to this point, because you've done everything that you know how to do at this point to get you to where you are right now. Now, for you to get better, for you to make more, for you to do more, for you to become more, you have to kind of close that gap between where you are now and where you're trying to go. And the two ways to do that is, one, being able to take advantage of leverage, understanding that what you're doing right now can be multiplied based off of the tools, the systems, the equipment that you're using, and that equipment, those tools, that could be the business model that you're in, that could be, certain opportunities that you can tap into. But doing the same thing that you're doing now isn't going to get you to where you want to go. The second thing you're going to want to do is to challenge yourself and stretch yourself in regards to how much you want to make. Because just like you wouldn't go back to when you were your first job where you were making maybe $9 like I was, you would never do that, because internally you're worthy to make more than that. It's just you wouldn't even have the audacity to go back to do that, because that you're capable and you're able to do more, and you deserve more. And so in the same way, you want to flip that. If you want to make $50,000 a month, I know for some people that might sound ridiculous. For some people, that's their lives. That's where they're living right now. But because the only reason they were able to get there is because they at one point said to themselves, I want to make only 50K. If you say that, it changes the dynamic of that 50K. Only 50K, really? But when you think about it and when you internalize that, yeah, only 50K, that means 50K now became your bottom, and that became the floor. So now it's 50K and up, and when you think like that, when you reprogram yourself like that, when you believe like that, that's going to be able to open your eyes to different opportunities. That's going to be able to help you think differently, move differently, act and behave differently, and then ultimately help you get closer and closer to that number. And who's going to complain about that? Because when you hit that, now it's not just it's more than you wanted, because you're worthy of it, but because you're using the right language around money to be able to help you to get to that. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope it helps you challenge a little bit the way you think about money, you think about finances, and remember that at the end of the day, abundance is our birthright. But if you don't understand these principles and tap into these principles, they're not going to be able to do anything for you. So knowledge and understanding these things is the first step. The second step is going out there and applying it. So hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them down in the comment section below. Outside of that, I will see you on the next one.